We'll start in a minute.
Добрий день, друзі. Я вас вітаю у медіа-центрі.
Good afternoon, dear friends. It is a pleasure to welcome you here in Ukraine Media Center. I would like to remind you that we have been supported by the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine and the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Ukraine. We also have our media center working in Lviv. We are hosted by Skyloft Hotel, and thank them very much for that. And I would like to briefly cover our schedule for today. The first briefing is to start right now. You already see it on our screen. We see the advisor to the Minister of Internal Affairs, Anton Heraschenko. The subject of Anton's briefing will be evidence of war crimes and crimes against humanity committed by the Russian Federation in Ukraine. At 2 p.m., there will be Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs joining us, Emina Japarova. And Ms. Japarova will tell us about International Court of Justice as a way to bring Russian Federation to liability for those crimes committed in Ukraine. And at 3 p.m. we'll have a speaker from the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Alexander Motozyanik. He'll tell us about the current situation on the front line. So now we are to start. Anton, you're welcome. Good afternoon, everybody. Dear friends. In the recent days, since February 24, Russian military committed hundreds of thousands of crimes against humanity and against specific citizens of Ukraine. Infrastructure has been destroyed. The transport infrastructure, logistics infrastructure is being destroyed. Schools have been destroyed, as well as hospitals and facilities needed to support the daily life of communities. Strikes are made against city councils, village councils, and state and municipal properties destroyed. The national police and units of the Ministry of Internal Affairs have been recording all those cases of killing, rapes, theft, and robbery and murder actions by Russian invaders. It's very important for future courts of law, both international and Ukrainian ones, to fully record all those crimes committed against Ukraine. And in order to do that, we have started video recording of all those facts of criminal offenses. And to that end, everybody who has left the occupied territories and who has been subject to various criminal actions from Russian officers, soldiers, and mercenaries should provide evidence to give testimony to be recorded on video and audio in order to have a database of all crimes by Russian invaders in Ukraine. It will be similar to how Nazi Germany's crimes were recorded during the Second World War. But back then there was only written evidence. Now we have been able to support each case with video recording from phones, from open sources that we have. And we believe it necessary to fully record already now all facts of what has been destroyed, what has been bombed, what has been destroyed, what has been stolen from whom, and so on, because finally, ultimately, we'll submit a huge bill to the Russian Federation for them to pay for those crimes committed against Ukraine. And we already understand that it will be about hundreds of billions of US dollars. And we'll also have to assess the property damage, the financial damage that can be recovered from the Russian Federation for each family where somebody has died in Ukraine. And I believe that that amount should be at least $1 million US dollars, at least, in such cases. What types of crimes are committed most often against Ukrainians? First of all, those are crimes against life of Ukrainians, killing of innocent people. The well-known facts of Ukrainian citizens being shot, being killed. They had no weapon. They were not any threat for invaders. They were killed just to make them unable to submit information about the locations of those invaders. There have already been dozens of such cases, and we believe that there are hundreds of those because a lot of such crimes is committed in occupied territories where there is no communication, no connection to people. First of all, in Kyiv province, around Hostomel, around Borodyanka, and so on. Jointly with our allies, we intercept a lot of conversations by invaders, and we'd like to say that we know who those people are, and we hear about mass-scale shooting, killing. For example, in one of the conversations, they mentioned 3 Ukrainian citizens in Borodyanka district being killed. They just by chance came to the invaders' positions. They were they took their clothes off and they took their mobile phones and they decided to kill those Ukrainians so that those Ukrainians would not be able to tell where Russians are located. All those crimes have already been worse than what German Wehrmacht was done here. German army was, as many sources say, much better towards civilians. I don't mean SS, but German army was better against peaceful civilians than what Russian army does now. We'll see what they will do in Ukraine. Maybe Russian fascists will be even worse than German fascists, German Nazis. Another type of crime is rape. Currently, we have not had anyone case of rape recorded in the free territory of Ukraine, but we know of such facts in those territories occupied by invaders. We know it from our sources, we know it from conversations we intercepted where invaders are proud of having raped Ukrainian girls, and they will be brought to liability for that. The third group is stealing from Ukrainians' private houses, murder activities. Russian army was brought here with a task to get Kyiv and Kharkiv in 5 days, and they did not even have sufficient food and reserves. So in the last 2 weeks, Russian occupational army has mostly been involved in marauding, in looting to find food. Say, each and every citizen whose house have been subject to that, where they took their sheep, pigs and so on, everything should be recorded and everything should be recovered through reparations from Russian federations. Another type of crimes, big category of crimes, is crime against national and municipal property. And it's even difficult to count now how many roads, bridges, and civil buildings have been destroyed. And there will be huge-scale activities to calculate all those damages made by Russian Federation damage caused by Russian Federation in Ukraine. Unfortunately, we understand that the military hostilities have not been over as yet, and this bill will grow. We already know we already have some idea of which sources to use to recover the damage. Assets of the Russian Central Bank and other Russian state institutions frozen abroad, more than $300 billion. For example, recently in Canada, Russian Ruslan Antonov 124 was seized in Canada. It will stay there, and then this airplane costs, say, 70 or 100 million US dollars. It will be sold, and the money will later be used to cover that huge damage caused by the Russian invasion and Russian aggression in Ukraine. That's about recording those crimes in Ukraine. Also, I would like to tell you that yesterday, for the first time ever, we have seen the very first fact in Kyiv where the new type of artillery cartridges was used. That missile was dropped on a parachute in the city of Kyiv. It was launched from multiple launch rocket system. Yeah, I would like to see the photos, but unfortunately I don't see the screen. But everybody who watches your broadcast will see that picture. Please show that picture, that photo. This is an example. You see, these are bombs that have a parachute, and they are used against the peaceful city of Kyiv. And in the last photo, you will see the damage caused by this bomb, the destruction caused by this bomb on a parachute, damage caused by Ukrainians' private houses. We see that Russians have now already been using all tools, even the most cruel ones, against Ukrainian civilians. They have been bombing and shelling at residential quarters, Kharkiv, Chernihiv, Mariupol, and other cities. It makes no sense other than hate against the Ukrainian nation. And to summarize, I'd like to say that now we have this war for survival of civilization and survival of the Ukrainian nation. Here in Ukraine, we have been fighting for Europe and for the whole civilized world. So please, please, please support us with weapons, support us with humanitarian aid, and please implement new sanctions, additional sanctions, even stronger sanctions like full prohibition of trade with Russian Federation. It should not be buying, and one should not be buying anything from them. Full economic iron curtain, until they fully leave the territory of Ukraine and undertake a commitment to cover all the damage they have caused. We will never be able to bring to revive those children, those mothers, those military guys, but everybody who suffered from Russia should be covered. Thank you. I'm ready for questions. Anton, please, for our audience, could we tell immediately what is the channel to be used by Ukrainians to report about such crimes committed against our people? Now, each and every Ukrainian who has left the occupied territory or who is in the free territory but who has suffered from that shelling and who has incurred damage against property or house. In free territory, we have National Police and State Emergency Service coming and recording all that, and all such cases are recorded in the Unified State Register of Crime. But those who were in occupied territories, if you have been victims of crime, please report to the nearest police station, and all police personnel has been warned that if there is an IDP reporting to them about some crime, they should immediately record that crime in a unified register. For example, now tens of thousands of people who have left Mariupol, and we will invite them whenever it's more convenient for them or whenever they have time and believe they can do it. They would tell that, say, on the 12th of March or on the 15th of March, Russian invaders caused such and such damage. For example, they bombed that person's house, or something was stolen from their apartment, or whatever. So that all those facts will be reported, and then we'll look for other witnesses and for maybe video recorders of those facts. We'll compare it against messages we intercepted from the invaders' phone lines, and in that way we'll try and identify those involved. And of course, the main criminal in those crimes is one person, Vladimir Putin, but all other bastards should be brought to liability too. Those people who have been bombing our cities and towns, those who have been shooting at our Ukrainians, and we have to identify all of them. By the way, if somebody would tell me how to identify which particular soldier or officer shot from this tank or shelled from one tank or another, I will tell you that after World War II there was no internet, no video cameras, and not a great number of other testimonies. But Semyon Wiesenthal created that center in Vienna, Center for Finding Nazi Criminals, and he only used paper reports. And in 15 years after World War II, he managed to find Adolf Eichmann in Argentina, and Eichmann was brought by Mossad agents from Argentina, and he was brought to court, and he was punished with capital punishment. We'll do it sooner or later, and we have to make a list of all criminals, be they generals or soldiers, and it should be done even now, and we have already been doing it. Thank you. Dear journalists, you are welcome to ask your questions. Please use a microphone. I am Zbigniew Parafianovich from Poland newspaper.
Кто будет?
Who will be bring to court those criminals? Ukrainian courts or international court in The Hague. I believe that first of all we should use Ukrainian judiciary system. All those crimes committed in Ukraine are to be judged by Ukrainian courts in accordance with our legislation. If you learn that a particular service member of Russian Federation, say Captain Smirnov, shelled from his tank or killed a peaceful civilian. That criminal case should be investigated in Ukraine, and there will be international search for that person declared, and that person will be locked forever in Russian Federation. As soon as that person leaves the Russian Federation, he or she will be caught through Interpol and brought to Ukraine. All those criminals, maximum they could expect is to live in their Russian Federation they love till the very end of their life. Thank you.
The Daily Telegraph of London. I have two questions, if I may. You were talking about Mariupol just earlier. Is there any update on the situation in Mariupol in terms of the reports that Russian troops are now fighting in the city center? And also on the people trapped in the theater building? And then my second question is that you have many Russian prisoners of war here. Can you give us an idea of how many? And if so, what is the plan for those prisoners of war? Will they be prosecuted, or what will happen with them?
I will start with prisoners of war. There are prisoners of war who have not committed any crime as yet. You probably saw a press briefing several weeks ago when there were like a week ago, conscripts, 18, 90-year-olds old. They didn't even shoot any one time. So there is no issue about them, about war crimes, but still they're soldiers of that aggressor, that country, who violated our borders. So for all of them, they are criminally liable. But of course, there will also be other prisoners of war captured in Russia, and we should use those people for exchange. So, like in most wars, there is some exchange with prisoners of war. This is one thing. Second, about situation in Mariupol, it's very difficult. Their communication interrupts every now and then. Our military do not have stable communication. There has been the fourth day of street fighting in Mariupol, very difficult situation because Mariupol has been completely sieged. And I believe that in textbooks on world history and global history, that heroism of heroes of Mariupol will be mentioned in all world history textbooks. Yesterday, the President of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, declared the commander of Azov Special Unit of the National Guards and commander of the 36th Naval Brigade defending Mariupol heroes of Ukraine. I believe that all those being in Mariupol now, all those defending Mariupol now are heroes of Ukraine. Now about the Mariupol drama theater. I don't have any reliable information, confirmed information. I can only repeat what President of Ukraine said, that have been about 130 people alive who left that theater, those ruins. But we have some estimate that there was about 1,000 people in that building, so I believe that there is a lot of dead people there. But if Mariupol is captured, is taken by invaders, I can expect that we'll try to hide their military crimes, and they will try to remove those ruins with those dead bodies, to cover them with soil, to hide how many people died there. But still, I'd like to repeat that we'll use testimonies by witnesses how many people were there in that theater. It can all be counted. I believe there will be terrible numbers, like hundreds of dead people. These are my estimates. Thank you. Thank you. I'm Zbigniew Paranovich. One more question. Could you please confirm that Ukraine has lost access to Sea of Azov? We have lost access to sea since the 24th of February at 5 a.m., sorry, because during that invasion by Russian Federation, their military ships have completely blocked all our seaports, and there have already been several facts when they shelled and destroyed several foreign ships living at the port. By the way, there are now several foreign ships blocked in our ports. If you're interested, I can provide you with the full list. About 650 foreign sailors from other countries, from Philippines to Brazil, have now been blocked in Ukraine. They cannot leave. Thank you. Any more questions? There are no questions here in this room, but there has been one question we received as follows. Anton, could you please tell us? We all see from various communication channels that there have been facts of forceful evacuation of Russians to Russia. How it has been recorded and how it has been classified as a crime, and what should those Ukrainians do? How could they get back? First of all, you have to understand that voluntary evacuation is one thing, but involuntary evacuation is completely different. If that Ukrainian wants to get back to Ukraine, it will be not that difficult. It will be not that easy for that person, because our border with Russia has been closed, even in those parts where there are no hostilities, as well as border with Belarus. So, if that Ukrainian has been forcefully brought to Russia, they can only get to Ukraine through another country, through a third country. For example, from Russia, that person could get to Georgia, and from Georgia through other countries to Poland or Hungary, and then back to Ukraine through the western border of Ukraine. That's the only way, because currently from the territory of Russia, Ukrainians cannot get back to Ukraine, cannot return to Ukraine. And that's also a crime, and we will also record all those crimes. Thank you. Thank you. Any more questions? There are no questions. Thank you very much. But sorry, there is another question.
Idea of how close the fighting in the center of Mariupol is to where the theater is?
Please translate, please.
Спрашують, наскільки близько до Маріуполя йдуть військові дії? Уточнює журналіст.
Військові дії вже йдуть.
The fighting has already been in Mariupol itself.
Наскільки близько до центру?
How close to the center of the city it was? I don't have information. That's street fighting. So you see, you can see a lot of videos for the last 4 or 5 days where tanks and infantry fighting vehicles of the enemy are being destroyed right there in the streets of Mariupol. Thank you. Thank you, Anton, for joining us. Thank you for your information, and I'd like to remind you, dear friends, that we have been working for you, and at 2 p.m. you're welcome for our next briefing, where we'll have the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Amina Japarova. You're welcome to join us. Thank you, and goodbye.
Sorry, що я там
Там просто, нічого, просто розумів, поляк російську ми на англійську